on our way out, I saw this huge like femur bone. And I stopped, and there's a buffalo in here. There's a buffalo right here, and everybody's alarms kind of went up, and the young man with us, his alarm really went up, and he was on the search. I was like, I gotta find it before him, and I found it, and it's right here behind.
It's the light that is shining, friend in me
Mocking
and
things
in
like,
you.
ha ha
Walk
ha.
in the light,
Everywhere
wherever you
everywhere
may
the light
be.
shines, you see my face.
Walk in the
Of course.
light,
And I was
wherever
like,
you may be.
geez, I felt so silly in the moment, just even asking the question. I just felt so silly. I doubted, and I still was receiving this mercy and this grace. It was this message.
Glory of the light, said Fox.
If you can see it in this really simple things, like in a stone, then it's so much easier to see in other people. Like we're always trying to figure out how to see the divine in all of the people, but
Dustin, welcome to The Light and All.
thank you. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, as you know, the plan here is to discuss your journey through life thus far. You got a ways to go by looking at you.
Oh, really?
But as always, we're going to be willing to make twists and turns as the light guides us.
Mm-hmm.
But before we jump right into your story, and I guess this question I have for you to kind of get to know you a little better will lead us right into that story. If you could go back in time and have lunch with your 20-year-old self, what do you think you would want to tell yourself?
Wow. All right. Strong start.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Maybe start with where would
Look,
you be meeting your 20-year-old self, and what would your
yeah.
20-year-old
So
self
I
be
was
involved in?
I was in my early college years, where I was studying healthcare, and I was really interested in paramedic science, and so I was getting my EMT around that time. And so I guess I would tell myself that it's okay to pursue your interest, as I was really just trying to find my way based on what was being kind of told to me in the moment. Was the healthcare world was a really great place to work, and I really wanted to be helpful to people, so that seemed like a way to do it. So maybe I would tell myself that it's okay to pursue my individual interest a little bit more and not try to find my way in society, but maybe make my.
Okay. That sounds like good advice. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your story growing up. Start there maybe, and how that played a part in who you are today.
I grew up in southern Indiana, North Vernon, Jennings County. I was subject to a lot of time being allowed to be in the woods and run around free. And so I developed a deep connection with nature very early on. And um, I was always interested in actually the collection of skulls and such as that. I remember, you know, collecting skulls from my grandfather's farm and animals we hunted, and kind of gathering them in one spot in the forest and making a trail to it, and kind of setting up these like nature altars as a young kid in the forest. And that was kind of some religious inclination, I think, that I had for reverence. And so I did that, and went through into middle school and high school, and I guess I was really into skateboarding, to talk about that a little bit, that age frame. But by the time I was 12 or 13, which most this is coming of age experiences, I became very, very much more interested in religion. I kind of grew up with like uh, Baptist type of Southern Baptist feeling, attending church sometimes, but not all that often. But my family surely loved God, and it was supposed to be very important to us all. But by the time I was 12 or 13, as a teenager does, I began to rebel against the system a little bit and questioning it. And I sought out, I went to multiple churches on my own, with
Wow.
and different friends to kind of like be like, what is going on? I go to these youth groups and I'd hear some things that were really alarming sometimes, like these prophecies of end times and in relationship to 2001, say I was 11 years old at that point, or yeah, 10 years old in 2001, whenever all that was going on, 9/11 and such. And, uh, and so I was seeking that out and I found myself quite, unenthused about anybody. And so I kind of became a little bit, I would say, angry or something. And so I
Hmm.
went through a little phase of, you know, hyper like atheist type of mode, but it was only a short stint of time, maybe 12 or 13. But then luckily, or unfortunately, or whatever it be, uh, I was, I was, I met Buddhism through the death of my grandmother. It brought me and my cousin together, and he shared this book with me about Buddhism, and it was like, the Four Noble Truths, and they were just like boom, 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 and it was Buddhism is methodical, and that works really well for me, and
Okay, that was
I
appealing.
very appealing. The
So,
method, yeah,
just so I understand, and so as you explored these different, I assume they were all Christian groups,
yeah.
you felt a disillusionment with them. What was that disillusionment, do you think? What was it like in your mind, your 12-year-old mind? You were saying, I don't know.
I feel like it's probably the same thing I contemplate just even today is like just like a real insecurity in the language that people were using. It didn't seem like they were living joyfully. Um, and I expected a relationship with God would be at minimum sometimes joyful, you know? And so it seemed like there was just a lot of fear and insecurity, and that was just not what I was
It,
going for.
yeah, and it didn't match up. Do you think you had a vision of that need for joy? I mean, was that internal or did you get that from some authority in your life or what?
Um, you know, I think I got it from my mom a little bit, and I'm
Okay.
glad you asked that question just so I can give her some credit. Um, like, I feel like my mom's definitely had a hard life like a lot of people do, but she remains so content and available to people and joyful when things are hard. She's just real inspiration. So that was always really challenging to me. It's like, how is this working for my mom? But uh
Yeah.
yeah.
But she isn't herself, as you said, real religious.
Yes, but she's not necessarily somebody who's going to throw Bible verses at you or anything like that. She's not into that. She's just into the message of love that's quite clear from the Christian narrative. And so and that's what she's going to stick to. She's not going to play any of the more political games that can happen with religion, and she's going to keep to the core message, which was always really inspiring, that it was just really simple Christianity in my eyes.
Yeah, that's great. So you run across this cousin at your grandmother's funeral who introduces you to this concept or belief system of Buddhism.
Yeah, and that really put me on it for a long time. I was, I would say, so I'm 34 right now. And so that was at age, say 14. So about 20 years ago. And over that period of time, I got this big old Buddha tattoo on my chest and everything. I really dedicated myself to the, to the Buddhist method and spent a lot of time studying and, and then that which led to me in those teenage years also being more interested in martial arts because of the interwovenness of sometimes meditation and martial arts in Chinese and Japanese and Indian culture. So I started studying martial arts at that same time also, and um, so that just gave me a lot of purpose to kind of keep fulfilling this dynamic interplay of this movement practice and philosophical practice, and so I did that for a really long time. But
Did you I
yeah,
was gonna ask you, did you see it at that first of all, let me say, I am amazed at you being on that journey at such a young age. I think that makes you quite unique. I think you're telling about a journey that for many of us didn't happen till much later in life, maybe often older than what you are today. So I think that's interesting that you were set on that path, that you were contemplating those things. But my question was gonna be, did you see Buddhism as a substitute for Christianity or just something totally different?
I saw it completely different. I had honestly just kind of put Christianity behind me for nearly, 15 years before I picked it back up again. I just kind of just saw it as a complete different way of relating. There's a lot of ways. It's not a religion, it's a method, it's a science, it's a
Mm.
philosophy. It is oftentimes a religion too in some versions, but so I kind of ran with that more secular version of Buddhism for a long time, in which it was just about like the method. Mm.
Did you have, authority figures in your life, parents or others that were in any way saying, "Dustin, be careful here, what are you doing?"
Oh, definitely, definitely.
I assume that in Southern Indiana, that was not the norm.
Yeah, between that and oh yeah, I got a little bit of that feedback for sure. Yeah. And the story goes on that, between mixing a martial arts and meditation and those practices, I end up meeting my Tai Chi teacher about 10 years ago. So when I'm about 24, so I meet my Tai Chi teacher, maybe a little bit younger, and that really changes things. And so now I'm introduced to Taoism and and Tai Chi theory and an embodied way of taking these philosophies and moving myself through the world. And of course that's how we met, Steve.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, for our listeners, that's how we met. I was taking one of your classes a little over a year ago or about a year ago, I guess. Yeah, I was really impressed with you as an individual, how it seemed as if you were integrating so many things together in life, again, as a very young person. But then I quit the class because I just it was a time in my life and whatever that I just felt like, it wasn't right for me then, and I'm so happy our paths crossed again.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So go on, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
No, that's great. So I meet my Tai Chi teacher, and that just kind of makes me double down on things because now it's becoming more real for me because I'm feeling like I'm taking the philosophy, putting in my body. And at this time, I'm navigating those. Remember, I was in paramedic sciences, and I was and I decided that wasn't going to be the path for me, and I took a sales job at State Farm. Not as sales, but that was one of my main things. And so I did that for a while. And while I was also for those 3 or 4 years I was there, I was with my Tai Chi teacher, every week and reading the Tao Te Ching and using every moment I could of spare time but at that job to do something related to Taoism, Tai Chi at that time. And then I um, and then I made a dramatic change because I was feeling unfulfilled, of course, within that work. And this is where I'm saying I would have told myself, to maybe be and given to my passions. And I reached out to a school that I'd been following online, Rewild University in northern Wisconsin, and I reached out to see what if they were looking for any type of community members or assistants, or I mean, I didn't have the money to really attend, so I was trying to figure out a way to get involved, and it was really this auspicious event in which. Um, Kenton, the founder of the school, was like, it was just really nice. Everything kind of came together, and I went up there and I stayed for a few weeks, and ended up staying for a few years. Um, and then had my child up there, and so I was up there for 2 years at Rewild University as living as a forest monk.
Hmm.
So that was a deeper dive into it, and then it felt like there was no going back. Then, I
Yeah.
couldn't necessarily return to State Farm or more everyday job after that. And that's whenever my teacher in Tai Chi gave me the permission to start sharing my teaching Tai Chi itself. So I started teaching Tai Chi and making ends meet by doing that and living a very minimalist lifestyle there, incredibly minimalist lifestyle as a forest monk. And then um, I
What did your
returned.
day look like as a forest monk?
So because I was integrated with the others, so there was multiple of us. Say there was 3 or 4 forest monks at a time, and 4 or 5 community members who lived on the general 40 acres that we had up there near Superior. It was just a lot of practicing of the skills. So behind me is my current work, White Pine Wilderness Academy, where we practice the skills of like uh, starting fires by rubbing sticks together. And so, what does one of my average days look at? There's a video of me online of me breaking purposely through an icy lake and then crawling out of that hole in the icy water and then coming out and trying to start a fire by rubbing sticks together. Like, wow, you know. So I was facilitating it.
You were under the ice?
I fell through the water, yep, and then got up out of the ice water to get out to try to do a fire challenge afterwards. So that was the type of stuff we did there. It
And
was
you
we
did that on
facilitate
purpose, or
Yeah, on purpose, yeah. We facilitated that and we did it. We challenged ourselves
wow.
to be out in the extreme elements.
So it's a mixture of this nature and philosophy and way of
Mhm.
life?
Yeah, it was like a nature connection, meditation, and also very martial artsy there. Very, very
Okay.
martial arts. So it was just a further dive into all those things. And so I became very involved and ended up being the lead instructor there at the end. And it was really moving. And then again I moved back to Indianapolis back in 2020, and then at some point I started working here at White Pine and continue that work now as in the wilderness skills, teaching and coordinating the community around nature connection.
Okay. So how has your let's come to
Mhm.
Indianapolis, kinda reentry. How did
Yeah.
that affect you? And
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. It was very shocking. That was something we facilitated for the other forest monks. There was a purposeful reentry. And so they would say stay remotely for a month or two, and then we would take them back into town to 45 minutes to the next town to take them to the grocery store. And between the lights and the sounds and the music and the people, it was always like, they're like feral animals now.
okay.
So the beards are going out more, and hair's longer, and return to and so there was a little bit of that. Like I remember the billboards were just like constantly overwhelming, because I lived quite deep in the forest and not out driving by billboards very often. And so just constant overwhelming of that. Yeah, and so I was seeking out community around that, which community is a big part of the reason, again, we're together, Steve, is because we met at the Quaker meeting. I'm a big part of love gathering with people. And so I was seeking community, and that's whenever I found this work at White Pine. But kind of relating it more to my religious story a little bit more. So like I'm doing this like meditation thing at Rewild Jew, and I'm oftentimes I'm hitting a wall. I'm hitting a constant wall where it's all based on my own skill set, my own. And you said I started early. I've always been trying. I've been trying forever and ever, and based on my own abilities, and it didn't seem, because I had this secular view, right? Like I wasn't asking for help from the divine or anything. And so that's where I kept kind of running into that over and over again within this, and it's kind of um just kind of neutrality of things. Okay, now what?
Yeah.
You
So
know?
w were you kind of bucking the system of Buddhism with that feeling, or I'm curious
Yeah.
how that fit?
Well, I would say Taoism opened me up to a little bit more, and which Taoism speaks about the way. And so the way is um the way in which, things go on. And so I was trying to find my way in alignment with things, like trying to get this grasp this bigger picture, and Taoism has this nice little um it's almost like a secular entry into the way, and doesn't necessarily it's not God, it's just the way things are. And so that's what I was that's where I was kind of at, but then I was like, how it's still dependent upon me and my understanding of that. I kept
And
hitting this wall of the
so
self.
you weren't satisfied there. Felt like
Yeah,
something was missing.
yeah, and then life happens, and then like 2020 is when I moved back, right? And a lot of people have stories that went on for them during these last few years. Everybody has constant stories. There's incredible suffering going on in the world, but I had my own suffering at that moment around 2020, 2021 and stuff, and I was overcoming Lyme disease. I'd contracted Lyme disease while in Wisconsin, and I was overcoming some chronic symptoms, and between that and to be honest, a little bit of like familial things. There was a separation between my child's mother and I, and I was like hitting this like wall. I was just like, oh, like I thought I worked everything I could do to do there, and I hit this wall in which I kept felt like I was gonna need to have to ask for help at some point, you know. And I didn't know if I would have that within the community. It felt bigger than that.
What was your community at that point?
So I was starting to dip my toes here at that point at White Pine. So I wasn't like really there, to like share all of those things and ask things of people. I was really I mean, I was able to share quite a bit, but it's still, I feel like it's still finding myself over here a little bit within the new community. So, um, but the good news is that this community offered me a way. So this kind of gets to our story of why we're here is that I shared a story with Steve, or sorry, with Bob, and he he shared it with a little bit with you, and I'm kind of going to tell it. So as I
Yeah.
came into White Pine, I met a community that's really interested in ceremony. Um,
Can you tell us just I'm sorry to interrupt, a little bit about what white pine is?
So White Pine Wilderness Academy in Rocky Ripple, Indianapolis, Indiana, and it's been going on for 12 years now. It's a project that the addresses nature deficit disorder. So this is actually something that's known now, that people have a deficit of connection with nature, and it makes for all kinds of between health issues or mental health issues, whatever it be. And so this school focuses primarily um, on children's programming. 5 days a week, we have kids here. We have over 100 kids that come here during those 5 days of different age groups, 3 to 17, and they spend their day here connecting with. For example, this next unit, we're going to be learning bird language, basket making, pot making, like in primitive styles, and we'll be studying like how to observe nature, like journaling, proper journaling, naturalist journaling. We just finished up tanning of hides and shelter making, and kind of building up this like leadership archetype in the past, just this past few weeks. And now we're moving into so every 4 weeks our curriculum changes based on the season and
Okay.
where we're at in the year. And so we have this incredible system that is based on lineages that we have that go from indigenous lineages here in North America, but also in India and throughout. that have gifted us these stories and these practices, and we hold them for those elders and ancestors and then pass them on to the future generations. So that's our primary thing. And we also have adult programming too. And so, but our main thing is our children's programming that we do throughout the year.
Excellent. Sorry, can we get back then to so your community at this stage where you're starting to kind of hit a wall, as it sounds like, are fellow instructors there at White
Mhm.
Pine?
Yeah, yeah. The people that care about nature as much as I do, that wake up and think it's important to be out here, abdicating for the stewardship, which is a principle in which you're familiar with,
Yes.
of the world. And um, so yeah, and one thing that the adult programming gets into here, not adult, yeah, the adult programming, and kind of the general community outside of what we offer to the kids, and just kind of as a group of friends and adults, we gather and do sweat lodges. So a lot of people are familiar with the sweat lodge, right? And a nipi, a traditional practice in which a small dome is created and people enter it and it's covered and songs are sung in there with a drum. Rocks are brought in that are glowing red hot that have been heated for hours. Water is poured on those rocks and it fills the space with steam and through trying to enter like trance-like states, through participation in the songs and really feeling into them and the gratitude or whatever's being asked of in that moment. You, it's this religious ceremony that I've kind of been able to participate in that comes from specifically the Lakota people of South Dakota. And so we have our own kind of leaders here within the community. Amos, who is a song carrier, he holds the songs and pours the water for us, and beats the drum and allows us to have these kind of transformative spaces. So if you've ever been in a sauna, right? You've been in a
Yes.
sauna, isn't it so enjoyable?
Yes.
Now imagine doing it in community and then doing it with all the songs and you're learning and there's also this like that you're learning an indigenous language at the same time and honoring and keeping alive practices that people really want you to keep alive. It just feels so meaningful to do that. So that's the sweat lodge in which I was really looking forward to participating in some point in my life because I'd kind of always had this religious inclination, right? So I'd done all this reading of not just Buddhism, of almost any religious text I can get my hands on. And so I'd heard about sweat lodges, and so here I am being able to participate in them at White Pine, and they've been very powerful for me.
So that was your community at that time.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm honest, and then that was still like a year or two before what really got me going and got me beyond myself was, participating in the NEPs, kind of getting caught up in that. And then where the NEPI leads is to the vision quest. In Lakota it's called Hamblecha, which means crying out for a vision. So the Vision Quest is a 4-day fast, and you don't eat any food, if you wish, and you sit by yourself in say a 10-foot circle for 4 days in the forest. Now it's facilitated, and so there's ways in which it's maintained with safety, but it's still very intimidating and such,
It's
and so
intense.
yeah, intense, and so and so the NEPI kind of leads to that. It kind of has this trajectory. If you're interested, you can kind of take this next step. And out there, you face yourself and fasting. And surely we've all heard stories of people fasting and seeking out clarity in the wilderness.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what that was about. And it was like a really strong experience in which questionable things happen in which you're like, hey, is this just my mind or is this the world speaking to me? Is this God speaking to me? What is this? And it really got things going. And but the next kind of step for me and for others is to go out to the Lakota Sundance in South Dakota. There's many Sundances throughout even the world, but this one specifically happened on the solstice, summer solstice each year. And so
Okay.
that was kind of the next step for me.
So you participate in this 4-day fast, you have visions?
I would say I had a more of a strong vision at the Sundance, which I'll share in a moment. But I would say at the Vision Quest, there was a lot of clarity. There was a lot of clarity, but also some just kind of mixing things up. There was a lot of people seem to have a lot more clarity from their Vision Quest than I did, and a
You
lot of people
you
had
you
very powerful
you
experiences, much more powerful than I.
okay. So you felt again like, "What's wrong with
Yeah, I was kind of honestly, yeah,
Dustin?"
yeah, yeah, and to back it up just a little bit. Uh, yeah, like that was I didn't want to take anybody. We all kind of looked at each other's spots at the end of the 4 days. We all kind of there was 4 or 5 of us out there, and I didn't want to take anybody to my spot. I was just like I wasn't really sure what even happened. I wasn't really any too much more confident, I would say after that. Then I was like I'm still curious about what's on this path. But yeah, I definitely came out still with some doubts.
So that takes you to, as you describe it, kind of a next step in this journey, and that is to attend the Sundance.
Yeah. So to attend the Sundance is to support the Sundance. To support the Sundance at this point would mean to go there and keep fires going throughout the night, sacred fires. Maybe you'll be given the task. It's a very important task of being a fire keeper, and you keep a fire going all night. Or, you're cutting wood, carrying water, maintaining kitchens, helping build teepees, whatever it be. Um, there's a lot of support that those communities actually need out there. And they expect to have each year or it won't quite work out. So we went there because I have a friend almost, who has been a sun dancer for about 15 years. A sun dancer is somebody who the ceremony is really kind of fundamentally it's about, are the sun dancers, and I'll describe that here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we went out there on to support him. So just a sun dancer is somebody who pierces their skin at some point to a through maybe with buffalo bone, and it's tied to a center tree, and they rip this out while also fasting for that 4 days. And so, but there's a lot of just going. It's not just that.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
just kind of if you want to say what is it, what if you distinctly what is a Sundancer, that might be it. But so leading up to this, Almost is a extreme survivalist. He was on that show Alone. If anybody's familiar with
Oh,
Alone,
yes.
he was on that show and he did really well. And so he took us on a backpacking trip out into the Black Hills of South Dakota, and we were, not we're just going. Let's go to the tallest hill you can find, the tallest mountain you can find, whatever, and let's camp up there. And it was incredible. And
So these were
that
not KOA campsites.
No, no. We were out there and it was a push, it was exhausting to get out there and exhausting to get back and that kind of thing. And that night, whenever we got out there, the buffalo were out there and we were like singing to the buffalo some of these traditional songs, and then this storm came in and it was just the most wicked storm I've ever witnessed in my life, and our tents are almost blowing over. We're on the edge of a cliff. It was just intense, but also kind of auspicious or something like that. It was just like, what is going on right now? And so I woke up that next day with a fire under my butt because I had this sense that I was going to find a buffalo skull. And um and I went out and I was up much earlier than everybody else. I didn't find anything, So I was like, we all packed up our stuff and we were heading out. And then on our way out, I saw this huge like femur bone, and I was like, everybody stopped and I was like, there's a buffalo in here. There's a buffalo right here. and everybody's alarms kind of went up, and the young man with us, his alarm really went up, and he was on the search. I was like, I gotta find it before him, and I found it, and it's right here behind me. This buffalo skull. It and it was just incredibly meaningful for this reason because the Lakota, the buffalo is like one of the most important creatures to them, most important beings on the planet, and they call themselves the Buffalo Nation oftentimes. So I found this buffalo skull the day before we're about to go enter the Lakota ceremony. And I'm with Almos, and he believes it's a good idea that we bring it to the elders, and and I get to show to the elders of the community, and they give it a blessing, and we put sage in its snout, and they gave me the blessing to carry this buffalo skull and to share these stories. So here is that's the kind of just the setup to even getting where we're going, right? And so now we've arrived. And it's already been enough of a trip. You know, it's like I got to work next week. It's been enough of a trip already, but um now we've arrived and the real work is to be done at the Sundance. And uh that means again there's these for 4 days there'll be constant drumming and singing and prayers being given, and every couple hours the dancers come out and they dance, and everybody comes out and sings and watches them dance, and then they go back. Every night there's a sweat lodge, and that means again a nipi where they bring in the rocks, right? And there's two up on the hill for the woman sun dancers and for the male sun dancers, and then there's one down on the bottom of the hill for the supporters. So there's three Inipis going at all times in the evening. And um and so I'm sweating each night for maybe say a few hours at a time. Like maybe you do a sauna generally for like, 30 minutes or something like that. But I'm in there and I'm also singing songs, and it's not regulated temperatures. It's not, 150, you press the button to it. It's just whatever, however many stones that medicine man wants to bring in that evening, and pour water on, and it gets unbearably hot. And so I'm doing that each night, and I'm supporting the dancers, and I'm just learning this. I'm just having this beautiful experience. But on day 3, whenever almost he was supposed to be pierced and and tied to the tree and do his ripping away, I hit a huge wall, and this is where kind of things changed a little bit for me. So I want to make sure. Is there any questions up?
No, no, please continue.
So I hit this huge wall, and I decide that I can no longer do this at all. Like it's not like me necessarily, but I'm abandoning the mission. I'm like, I even tell my mentor, Matt, I go as far as like telling him I can't go out and dance and support almost. By that, I mean, on this day, I was expected to go out and be out in the sun and dance behind him while he's doing the piercing. But I was just completely beat. I was burnt and I was tired. I'd not slept through most of the night. So I was sleeping in a teepee where oftentimes it's wet, or I'm getting burnt by the fire, and and just sweating throughout the night. And I'd already been on that long backpacking trip. And I just was like, I can't do it anymore. Like I thought for my own well being, I was just like, I had to argue for myself or something. I had to petition for myself. Like I had to work in 2 or 3 days from then. And so I was like, I got to recover. I got to take some time. And it would deafen the room, deafen the teepee. And it was like, it was like super quiet. And then Matt said, you know why we're here, right? It's to support Amos. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, you know why he's here, right? And I was like, why? And he goes, because he's praying for the children of the world out there as he's piercing. That's why we're here, is to support him so he can pray for the children of the world. And it was like, it like really took my breath away, and I just I had to reconsider everything. And I said, all right, well, give me a moment, more than a moment, but give me some time. I'm going to go pray myself. And see, at this point, I'm not sure if I'd really prayed in my life up until this point. I I didn't think it was like I just didn't pray. I didn't really think that I was going to ask for anything for myself or anyone. I'd kind of just looked at prayer as like this thing that other people did, and like I said, I was kind of just like I always hit this meditation wall, and I didn't get beyond it. And but I decided to go and pray, like how I thought people pray. So I went to the top of the hill and I got down on my knees and I put my hands together and I was just like begging, I was just like mercy for the dancers, mercy for, the supporters. I know like all the dancers, everybody's toasted, everybody's exhausted. I'm not the only one that's tired. Those guys been fasting for 3 days. I've been eating the whole time. And and I prayed and I prayed for mercy, and there was a little shift in the winds, of course, and the clouds rolled in and shade was upon me in that moment. And then I heard a clicking tapping, and I knew, of course, what it was. It was a woodpecker, but it was like just overwhelming. It was just like the only thing I could hear was like this sound. And in that sound, it wasn't like there were words, but it wasn't like it was like talking at me, but I knew exactly what was being said. The woodpecker was communicating something to me, and the woodpecker was giving me instructions on how to pray. And the instructions were to go to the forest, to find a feather, very specifically to take that feather, and to place it in your mouth very gently, and sit under a tree and sit still and pray. And if you don't know how to pray, because I think a lot of people struggle with this, then you pray for the children of the world. At least give a thought to the children of the world. It was like clear as day, like that was what I needed to do. And I had a little bit of an argumentation in my mind, and I was like, I don't actually have a feather on me right now. I was like, I don't have a feather on me. And again, there's this like do 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 do, and it was like, it's like you better get a feather. and I had found a hairy woodpecker feather the day I had arrived, and that was a hairy woodpecker itself. And so I rushed to my camp. I got the woodpecker feather, and with this kind of conversation with the woodpecker, I felt an incredible resolve. Just kind of riding the wind of that, I entered the arbor and danced behind Amos with the woodpecker feather in my mouth. And because the way we were facing, we could have been facing anyway. The sun was coming at us, but Amos was right in front of me, and I couldn't help be behind him. Like I actually wanted somebody else to be behind him, but like he kept being in front of me, and his shadow was projecting on me, and so I wasn't getting burned at all. It was like he was taking everything for me, and my feet were just completely fine because they were so burnt. Because you can't wear your shoes into the arbor, right? And so the sun is shining, the tree's there, but the sun is shining through the trees, so the tree is creating this incredible shade because the tree still has leaves on it. And I kind of want to back up just a little bit. That tree is so important to them, and you have the tree behind you. So on the first day, a tree is cut down, and it's never to be touch the ground. Axes and hatchets, it's cut down, it's never touched the ground. It's like a 50-foot tree, and we all carry it and we place it a couple hundred yards away into a different hole that's been dug, and we stake it in the ground, and now that's the sacred tree. And all these prayer flags are put on it. It's this beautiful, beautiful thing. And then there's all these ropes to it because there's 26 people who tied themselves and pierced themselves to that tree that day, or those 4 days. And they dance around that tree as if it's like a tree of life, or something like that. And so that tree is just like projecting this, and it holds all the prayers of everybody on it. All these prayer ties are on it, and it's projecting the shadow on me, and I'm looking through it, and I could see the sun, like perfectly. I can see it as if like almost like there's like an eclipse or something. Like I could see the sun really well, and I consider myself pretty light sensitive, and so I'm like looking at it. I'm like, what? just see it, and I could just see these obvious like four directions coming off of it, and I did what humans do, and I kind of doubted it a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, show me your face then, and and uh and there was like this again, this like overwhelming feeling. It wasn't like there was a voice that broke through the sky or anything, but it was like I knew exactly what was being said to me, and it was like it was like it was like kind of like a mocking thing. It's like ha ha ha, everywhere everywhere the light shines, you see my face, of course. And and I was like, geez, I felt so silly in the moment, just even asking the question. I just felt so silly. Like I feel silly now. It makes me feel weird in the heart, just why, of course. But I doubted, and I still was receiving this mercy and this grace and just this message. And so we finished it out, and he ripped out his piercings, and the next day happened, and I've been working with it ever since. That feeling. Well, I'd had some spiritual experiences before then, but they were always, I don't know, they felt like they were of my own accord, but this was something that I was asking for, and it was like given to me or something through prayer.
That's a powerful story.
Thank you.
Where where has that led you thus far?
Yeah. Um, it makes me want to just further develop that relationship with that light that's within all things, and doing that, I feel like it's just rapidly transforming the way in which I like it's so much more powerful than doing it all on my own. It's like I have this like wind behind me pushing me along that's just like makes me just want to be that much better to the world, and see the divine in everything. And um so I feel like it's just holding me to higher accountability constantly in a good way, and puts me in places where I can be talking to you now, and been talking to Pastor Bob for a few hours the other day. It's like it just puts me in those places if I ride the wind and like 'cause I'm being nudged along the whole time. If I listen carefully enough, the presence is always there. And so that's what it does for me now. And then it makes me want to kind of say something about it. And this is my first time ever speaking as publicly about this. It's going to go on the internet or whatever. And but it makes me want to share it. Like I hope somebody looks under a log or lifts up a stone and sees that the divine is there too. And if you can see it in this really simple things like in a stone, then it's so much easier to see in other people. Like we're always trying to figure out how to see the divine in all of the people, but I feel like that's or see the light in everybody, right? But if you expand it to the stones, these seemingly inanimate objects, but they're not inanimate at all, then it's so much easier to be loving to a human. And so, or luckily, so it works all the way down at that end, where the Lakota are calling the stones the Tankashila, like the grandfather, like they're the first being. But always all the way up to the infathomable, like the unknown, like if you deepen a relationship with this too, with that unknown, it just how much better you are at developing your relationships with things that are more obvious, like other people, and how much
Yeah.
you still want to love other people if you can love stones and you can love the unknown, then so that's kind of how it moves me nowadays.
Do you interact with that unknown at this point in your life?
Daily? You mean like do I pray
Yeah,
still?
like on a regular basis.
Yeah, every day I feel I feel a deep connection with with God every day.
So is that as you walk, or do you set aside times for that
Yeah,
or
yeah.
both or
Well, you know me as a Tai Chi teacher, I'll call people to put in the practice. And so I think there's like a time for practice and there's a time for like walking with it, right? And so it's really important to me that I set aside time in the morning and throughout the day to kind of say my prayers and make that connection with something I can't know. And then, um, and then so that it trickles into everything else. So then everything kind of becomes that constant prayer, you know? And so yeah, so I definitely take this segmented time throughout the day to try to do silence and or some reciting of something, but then also I am looking at how it shows up into my every moment too.
yeah, that like I said, is just a very powerful story. The reason we're having this conversation is how your experience parallels to an extent the story behind the Light and All podcast, which in many respects goes back to an individual called Brother Lawrence. I don't know if you've ever heard of Brother Lawrence. 15th century, I believe, individual who, for lack of a better term, practiced the presence of God in everyday life and serves as a great model. He had his first spiritual encounter as, I believe, like an 18-year-old walking by a tree, became enamored by the tree as he gazed into this, and it was a barren tree, it was winter. And he, as he gazed into that tree, not inviting anything or expecting anything really, just kinda in amazement of here's this barren tree, and in a couple months, it is gonna be full of leaves.
Mhm.
And as he contemplated that, he describes it as this spiritual experience of where God spoke to him, again, not in an audible voice, but basically, he said he experienced the love of God in such a way in that experience that nothing the rest of his life would ever outdo that.
Yeah.
And it was me thinking about that story and, uh, that it came to me this light shining through a tree would be the imagery, and that led me to Bob. I tell this story a little bit in the introductory, episodes, short episodes of the podcast, but in any case, wow, what a connection, and I get chills just thinking about it when Bob called me and told me that you had shared that story with him just within a few days of when we had talked and done some things. He said he almost fell out of his chair as you told the story of the light shining through the tree. And I am, I knew then I needed to get in contact with you to see if you would share. And I am so glad of your willingness to share.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's just such an interesting event, you know, that I can't imagine I would have ever seen myself saying at many points in my life before a few years ago. But it seems it's true that that you know God kind of shows up through nature, through the creation too, you know, and that if you pay attention, there might just be some messages out there for you.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love it. Thank you very much, Dustin.
There's a light that was shining when the world began. Light and heart that is shining in a woman and man. There's a light that is shining in us, in them too. It's the light that is shining, friend, in me and in you. Walk in the light, wherever you may be. Walk in the light, wherever you may be. In my old leather breeches and my shaggy, shaggy locks, I am walking in the glory of the light, said Fox. With a book and a steeple and a bell and a key, they would bind it forever, but they can't, said he. Oh, the book, it will perish and the steeple will fall, but the light will be shining at the end of it all. Walk in the light, wherever you may be. Walk in the light, wherever you may be. In my old leather breeches and my shaggy, shaggy locks, I am walking in the glory of the light, said Fox. If we give you a pistol, will you fight for the Lord? But you can't kill the devil with a gun or a sword. Will you swear on the Bible? I will not, said he, for the truth is more holy than the book to me. Walk in the light, wherever you may be. Walk in the light, wherever you may be. In my old leather breeches and my shaggy, shaggy locks, I am walking in the glory of the light, said Fox. There's an ocean of darkness, and I drown in the night, till I come through the darkness to the ocean of light. You can lock me in prison, but the light will be free, and I walk in the glory of the light, said he. Walk in the light, wherever you may be. Walk in the light, wherever you may be. In your old leather breeches and your shaggy, shaggy locks, you enlightened and changed the world, George Fox.